She found the wallet at 6:03 in the morning on the wet pavement outside the Makola Market bus stop in Accra, and her first instinct, before she even picked it up, was to look around for whoever had dropped it. Nobody was looking back. The street held only two things at that hour: a man selling roasted corn from a metal drum 30 meters away, his back turned, smoke rising slow and gray into the low sky, and the distant sound of a bus groaning through the turn on Kwame Nkrumah Circle. The wallet was black leather, thick with cards, and it had fallen open so that a small photograph was visible, a woman holding a baby. Both of them caught mid-laugh, the kind of photograph people carry not because they need to, but because they cannot imagine leaving home without it. Adaese Nwosu picked it up. She pressed it closed with both hands, gently, the way you close a book you intend to return to someone. She was 71 years old, and she had exactly 4 cedis and 60 pesos on her person, which was what remained of the money her daughter had sent from London at the beginning of the month, and which Adais had been making last with the careful arithmetic of a woman who had been making things last for 50 years. She had a market stall to open by 8 a.m., a 30-minute walk from the bus stop, and a left knee that had been swelling since October, in a way the clinic nurse had called inflammation, and the clinic nurse's supervisor had called, "Come back when you can pay for the scan." She stood at that bus stop with a stranger's wallet in her hands, and she did not open it to count what was inside. She took the bus to the market. What happened when she got there was something nobody who had been watching Adais Nwosu move quietly through the world for the past 7 years could have predicted. But one person had been watching, and she had been waiting for exactly this moment, though she could not have told you what form the moment would take. Adaese Nwosu had been born in 1953 in a town outside Enugu, into a family that understood money the way people understand weather, as something that came and went without asking your permission, and that you survived by building carefully in the dry seasons. Her father had been a record keeper for the local cooperative. Her mother had sold palm oil and crayfish from a stall in the market, and she had brought Adès to that stall every morning from the age of 4, not because she needed the help, but because she believed that a woman who understood the market would never fully be at the mercy of anyone who controlled her access to it. Adais had been at her own stall in Makola Market for 7 years. Before that, she had been in London for 16 years, keeping house for a family in Lewisham, southeast London, sending money home, watching her daughter grow up through phone calls and photographs until the family's youngest child finished university, and Adais's services were concluded with a handshake and a card that said, "Thank you for everything," signed by people whose handwriting she recognized, but whose daily lives she had carried for so long it felt, walking out of that house on Mercator Road for the last time, less like a goodbye than an amputation. She had come back to Accra with enough saved to buy the market stall and stock it. She sold dried goods, pepper, crayfish, ohiri, dawadawa, from a blue plastic table covered with a piece of Ankara cloth she had bought from a woman 2 stalls down on her first morning back. The cloth was orange and green with a repeat pattern of interlocking circles. She had not replaced it in 7 years because she had decided sometime in the 2nd year that it was good luck, and she was not interested in testing that theory. She was 4 feet 11 and 72 pounds, and she smelled faintly of the dawa she handled every day and of the shea butter she applied to her hands each morning because the dried goods cracked her knuckles if she didn't. She wore her gray hair plaited close to her head in a style her daughter called practical and Adais called sufficient. She had a pair of reading glasses she kept hanging from the collar of her blouse because she needed them for the small prices she wrote on the brown paper bags, but refused to need them for anything. Else. She had a son in Abuja she called every Sunday. She had a daughter in London she called every Wednesday. She had no savings worth speaking of, not because she had been careless, but because the clinic visits for the knee had been taking a specific percentage of what came in, and the rains in August had damaged the roof of the small room behind her sister's house where she slept, and the repair had cost what it cost, and there had been no dry season this year to build in. What she had, the thing she carried the way other people carry capital, was her name. Specifically the knowledge that in 7 years at Makola Market, in a stale between the woman who sold smoked fish and the man who sold phone accessories, she had never once given anyone a wrong weight or a short measure. She had never turned away a customer who was short on a Wednesday because they would be back with the difference on a Friday. She had never raised a price without telling the customer first and explaining why. And in 7 years, she had never once found something that did not belong to her and kept it. This last thing had happened 3 times before today. A phone, once. 2 market bags left at her stall by a woman who had forgotten them. A bundle of sedis that a child had dropped on his way home from buying pepper. All trees had found their way back to their owners. All 3 times, Adais had been thanked and then forgotten by people who had somewhere else to be. She was used to being thanked and then forgotten. It was, she had decided, simply the texture of an honest life. You did the right thing because it was the right thing, not because of what it returned. She was wrong about this, it turned out. But she would not know that until after the wallet had been in her possession for exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. The walk to the market from the bus stop on those mornings took Adais 31 minutes when her knee was cooperating and 39 when it was not. That morning it was 39. She walked slowly past the locked hardware stalls and the early bread sellers and the women who were already laying out their fabric on the low tables near the market. Entrance, and she felt the wallet in her bag against her hip with every step, like a stone she had picked up without meaning to. She thought about the photograph, the woman and the baby, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. She thought about what it meant to carry a photograph like that, not in your phone, but in your wallet, in the physical foldable object you carry in your pocket against your body every day. It meant the photograph was not for showing people, it was for the moments when you were alone. She thought about what kind of person was alone with that photograph every day. She did not think about the money. She thought, once, about the clinic, about the scan that the supervisor had redirected with a phrase she could still hear precisely. Come back when you can pay for the scan. All run together like one word, like a door closing. She thought about it for the length of one step, and then she moved past it, the way she moved past most things that couldn't be changed by thinking about them. She walked through the market gate at 7:48. A woman at the fabric stall called out a greeting, and a Daisy raised a hand without stopping. The coal pot fires were already going, and the smoke moved low over the stalls in the early cool. And there was something in the air. The combination of coal smoke and wet ground, and the first heat of the morning, that smelled like every morning she had spent in this market, all 7 years of them pressed into one breath, reconocible as home in a way that London had never been, for all its years. By the time Adis arrived at her stall at 7:52 that morning, the market was already 2 hours into itself. The air smelled of coal pot smoke and roasted corn and the particular warm damp smell of a market in the hour after rain, when the ground is releasing everything it absorbed overnight. She set down her bag, unfolded the Ankara cloth, arranged her goods, and placed the wallet, still closed, still unexamined, on the small shelf under the table where she kept her own purse and the paper bags and the stub of pencils she used for prices. She had checked the wallet for a name card or an ID while she was on the bus. There was a national identification card in the first slot. The name on it was Kwame Osei Mensah. There was also a business card, thick cream cardstock, embossed letters that said Osei Mensah Holdings, Cantonments, Accra, with a telephone number. She had not counted the cash. She had looked at the edge of the notes enough to understand there was a significant amount. She had not looked further. She served 5 customers between 8 o'clock and 9:15. Around 9:20, in a gap between customers, she took out the business card and walked to the phone accessories stall next door, where the owner, a young man named Coffee, who had been borrowing Adace's phone charger for 3 years in exchange for the occasional use of his mobile data, dialed the number for her and handed her the phone. It rang 4 times. Osei Mensah. The voice was male, middle-aged, clipped. The voice of a man who answered his phone the way he signed documents, quickly, to get to the next thing. Good morning, said Adace. My name is Adace Nwosu. I sell at Makola Market. I found a wallet this morning near the bus stop on Kwame Nkrumah Circle. I believe it is yours. A pause. Not long. The pause of a man recalculating the morning. You have my wallet, he said. Yes. Is everything? He stopped. Started again. How do I get it to you? I am at my stall, said Adais. Makola Market, Section C, between the smoked fish and the phone accessories. I will be here until 5. Another pause. Something in the quality of this one was different from the first. I'll come myself, he said. She handed the phone back to Kofi and returned to her stall. If you can feel where this story is going, subscribe now. Because what Kwame Osei-Mensah finds when he arrives at that market stall is something he was not prepared for. And what he does with it is something nobody in that market had ever seen before. E arrive taleventer chin. Adaese knew he was coming before he reached her stall, because the market reorganized itself slightly in front of him, not deliberately, but in the way crowds respond to a particular kind of presence without being told to. He was 58 years old, broad-shouldered, wearing a gray agbada that was clearly not his market clothes, which meant he had come directly from somewhere else or had changed specifically for this. He had the look of a man who had been moving fast all morning and had made himself slow down. As stopped in front of her stall, he looked at her, not from shoes to face, but face to face, which was not nothing. Adaise Nwosu, he said. Yes, she said. She reached under the table and brought out the wallet and placed it on the Ankara cloth between them. He picked it up and checked the cards with a quick practice movement. He checked the photograph. His face did something small and private when he saw it. Then he reached for the cash. She watched his hands. He counted. She saw the number register on his face. Not surprise, but something that became surprise when he looked up at her. You didn't take anything, he said. No, she said. There is 4,500 cedis in here. She had not known the exact number, but she had known it was substantial. She said nothing. He looked at her for a moment in a way that was different from the way people had been looking at her for the past 7 years. It was the look of someone recalibrating not just a fact, but an entire assumption. What can I give you? He said. For the trouble. Nothing, she said. It was no trouble. I was on the bus anyway. It was quiet for a moment. He was looking at the stall, at the orange and green Ankara cloth, at the careful arrangement of the dried goods, the small handwritten prices on the brown paper bags, at her hands, which were rough at the knuckles from the dawa dawa, at the reading glasses hanging from her collar. How long have you had this stall? He said. 7 years, she said. Before that? London, she said. 16 years. He did not say anything. He looked at her again with that recalibrating look, and then he said something she was not expecting. Can I ask you something that is not about the wallet? She looked at him. You can ask, she said. What did you do in London? She told him. Not everything, just the shape of it. The family in Lewisham. The 16 years. The way you learn to run a house of 7 people across 2 generations. The schedules and the medications and the dietary requirements and the emotional weather. The logistics of a life that belongs to other people, but that you are responsible for keeping intact. He listened in a way that most people don't listen, without preparing the next thing he was going to say. When she finished, he was quiet for 3 seconds. Then he said, My mother is 73. She lives alone in East Legon. She has been alone for 2 years, since her last companion left. I have 3 people who work in the house. I have no one who looks after her. Adaes looked at him. I am not asking you to be a servant, he said. That is not what I am describing. I am describing someone who understands how to hold a life together, who can be present in a way that is not. He paused, choosing the word. Not transactional. The smoked fish seller to Adai's left had gone still and was listening with the focused attention of someone who knows a significant conversation when she hears one. Kofi at the phone accessories. Stahl had found a task that required him to stay facing in Ades's direction. What does your mother need? Said Adesis. Company, he said. Someone to eat with. Someone to go to the clinic with. Someone who will call me if she falls and someone she will actually call. She does not call me. He said this without self-pity, just as a fact about his mother which made it sadder than self-pity would have been. She says she does not want to be a burden. Adaise was quiet. There is a room in the house, he said. A proper room, with a window. It is not a servant's room. My mother was very specific about that when we prepared it. She said that whoever came to be with her would be a companion, not staff, and the room would reflect that. What does the room look like? Said Adaise. He blinked. He had not expected this question. He thought about it. There is a window that faces the garden, he said. She planted something in that garden, but I don't know what. There is a chair by the window. Yellow. She chose it. Adaethe was looking at the Ankara cloth on her table, at the 7 years of it, at the stall that had taken everything she saved and given her something, but not the thing the clinic nurse's supervisor had meant when she said, "Come back when you can pay for the scan." "I would need to think," she said. "Of course," he said. It took a business card from the wallet, the same thick cream stock she had already seen, and placed it on the cloth. Then, he looked at the dried goods on the stall. "How much for everything on the table?" he said. "That is not necessary," she said. "I know," he said. "How much?" She told him. He paid it without looking at the amount. He told her he would have someone pick it up, and he wrote a name and a number on the back of another card. He left at 11:51. The smoked fish seller watched him go and then turned to look at Adais. "Eh," she said. Just that one syllable. "Eh." Adais sat down on her stool. She picked up the business card. She turned it over once. She called her daughter in London that evening. Not on Wednesday. That evening. "Something happened today," she said. "Good or bad?" said her daughter. "I don't know yet," said Adaise, "but I want to tell you about it." She called Kwame Osei Mensah 3 days later. Not to say yes. To ask more questions, the kind that told him who she was as much as the answers told her who he was. What were his mother's medications? What time did she wake? What did she enjoy? What made her afraid? He answered all of them. When she asked what his mother's name was, he said Maame Akosua. When she asked what Maame Akosua would think of being asked if she wanted a companion, it was quiet for a moment and then said, "She would say she does not need one, and then she would start cooking for you." Adese sighed. She would come to meet Maame Akosua the following Saturday. Not to accept anything, to meet her. She took the bus to East Legon on that Saturday morning. The house was behind a low white wall on a quiet road, the kind of road where the trees were old enough to form a canopy, where the sound of the city arrived muffled and respectful. Maame Akosua was in the garden when Adese arrived. She was 73 years old and sharp-eyed, and she was doing something with a plant near the far wall. And when Adese came through the gate, she looked up and looked at Adese for a long moment without speaking. "You are the one who found the wallet," she said. "Yes," said Adese. "Sit down," said Maame Akosua, pointing to a bench near the low wall. "I want to finish this first." Adese sat. She looked at the garden. She looked at the house. In an upstairs window she could see, just barely, the corner of a yellow chair. They talked for 2 hours, not about the arrangement, about everything else. Enugu and London, and markets and children, and the specific loneliness of a person who is loved from a distance by people who are also busy. Maame Akosua made tea and brought it out in 2 white cups. She had opinions about everything and was not shy about them. At one point, she asked Adais what she cooked, and when Adais told her, Maame Akosua sighed, finally, in a tone of such genuine relief that both of them started laughing before either of them fully understood why. Adaese came back the following week, and the week after that. She did not give up the stall immediately. She found a young woman from her daughter's church group who was looking for a way to earn during the day, and she taught her the business over the course of 3 weeks. The weights, the suppliers, the prices, the customers who needed a little grace on Wednesdays. She told the young woman about the Ankara cloth. She told her not to change it. On the first of the following month, Ades moved into the room with the yellow chair and the window that faced the garden. The knee was seen by a specialist at a private clinic in Cantonments, the kind with equipment that didn't have a waiting list to use, within 2 weeks of her moving in. The scan showed moderate wear, manageable with treatment and the right shoes, not the catastrophe the swelling had been implying. The doctor said she would do well. Adaise thanked him and put her reading glasses back on her collar and walked out into the afternoon. She called her son in Abuja that Sunday. She called her daughter in London that Wednesday. "You are happy," her daughter said. It was not a question. "I am useful," Ades said, which is different. But yes. In the evenings, she and Maame Akosua ate together in the kitchen. Maame Akosua had views about palm oil that she expressed with the confidence of someone who has been proved right before and expects to be proved right again. Adaese had views about pepper that she defended with equivalent conviction. They disagreed productively every evening. Sometimes Kwame came for dinner and sat at the head of the table, saying nothing while the two women argued about seasoning, which appeared to be his happiest version of an evening. In the garden, beside the bench where Adais had sat on that first Saturday, a small marker read, Yellow Ixora, planted March 2023 by MAO. Adaese did not know what it was when she first saw it. Mame Akosua told her. She said that Ixora was a plant that grew better when it was near something else growing, that it didn't do well alone. That a gardener she'd spoken to years ago had said it was one of the few plants that genuinely seemed to understand the value of company. Ades looked at the plant for a moment. Then she looked at Mame Akosua. Is that why you planted it? She said. Mame Akosua picked up her tea. I just planted a plant, she said. Go and stir the stew. What Kwame Osei Mensah lost that morning on Kwame Nkrumah's circle was 4,500 cedis, a national ID, 7 credit and business cards, and a photograph of his late wife and daughter, taken at a naming ceremony in 2004. What he got back, what he had not known he had been trying to replace for 2 years, one housekeeper and one companion agency and one failed arrangement after another, was someone who understood that looking after a life is not the same as managing a schedule. Someone who had learned, in 16 years in a house in Lewisham and 7 years at a blue plastic table in Makola Market, the particular skill of paying attention, not because she was asked to, because she had decided, sometime very early in her life, that it was the worthwhile thing to do. Adaese Nwosu did not find that wallet because she was hoping something would come of it. She found it because she happened to be at a bus stop at 6:03 in the morning, and a wallet had fallen open and there was a photograph of a woman and a baby, both of them laughing. She picked it up because leaving it there was not something she was capable of. Everything that followed was simply the world, finally paying attention to someone it had been overlooking for a very long time. It is something I want to ask you before you go. There is a person in your life, perhaps more than one, who has been doing the right thing quietly, without credit, without reward, for years. Not because they are waiting for something in return, because that is simply who they are. My question is this: when is the last time you looked at that person, really looked, and said out loud what you already know, that what they carry matters, that you see it? Because sometimes the wallet is not the test. The wallet is the moment, and the only thing that determines whether it changes anything is whether someone was finally paying attention. Leave your answer in the comments. I really want to read it. Subscribe for more stories about hidden strength, quiet power, and the people the world overlooks until they change everything. These are the stories worth telling. I'll see you in the next one.